Hello, TPR Nation. This is Amber Kuhn from the Perfect RIA. Thank you for joining me on today's Follow-Up Friday, where we'll be covering the highlights and action items from this week's episodes. On Monday's episode, Matt and Micah were talking about how it's those little things that truly matter when it comes to client communications. The guys have sat in other people's client meetings, and while they said that it's rare to see those really egregious mistakes, that more often than not, it's those really small things that may seem insignificant, but they can completely shift the dynamic of a client meeting. This goes back to that idea that everything counts. Matt and Micah have said this before. Everything helps or it hurts, but everything counts. And because of this, you want as many things helping as possible because one negative thing could take away 10 positive things. So this could be paying attention to how you're dressed, how our clients graded, those pre-appointment communications. They said you want to stack the deck in your favor and you want to be fully present in your client meetings so that you can help your client, which is your ultimate goal. Matt said that the only work you do as a financial planner that counts are the things that the client implements. And that if the client doesn't have the confidence in you to follow your advice, especially when the markets are down or things are crazy, then none of it matters. So those little things might feel trivial, but they make all the difference in the world. Matt and Micah then went into what are those little things that tend to come up that can make a difference. They said using the phrase, "to be honest." We've all started getting into this bad habit, but this brings up the question of, are you really being truthful? So instead of using that phrase, Micah likes to say, how this works with most of my clients is A, B, and C. He likes that language, how this works with most of my clients, because of course he has more than one client, but he's also not making this an all or nothing thing. And that phrase then allows the client to come on a journey with him. Matt uses the statement, Mr. and Mrs. Client, this is your first, and if we do this right, your only retirement. But we've been helping people retire for decades and we're really good at it. By making that statement, he's letting them know that he's really good at something and he's been doing it a long time and that if they do it right, it will be their only retirement. Michael will also bring up his process of success. These 3 simple words show that 1, they have a process, and 2, he's showing that by following it, it will be successful for clients. Matt will also bring up the fear that a client will experience when they retire, and he'll let them know that it's totally normal and that he wants them to call him when they go through this emotion so they can review that retirement plan together. Micah will tell clients what to expect and think about how they'll feel the moment they retire and when, not if, there's a down market. He validates their concern. Also, regarding client questions, make sure that you bring that up first in your meetings. And do this not by asking, do you have any questions? Because people are going to say no. But instead, ask them what's going on in their minds. What are their concerns and what's keeping them up? Micah likes to set up client meetings where they feel comfortable and he makes it more like a visit and less like they're going to the doctor's. He said he wants the client to feel like a welcome guest. Michael will look for other mini yeses to make sure that the client is understanding what he's presenting. It's a check-in for him, and he uses a phrase, is that okay with you? Matt will say, did I miss anything, as his check-in, and he said by doing this, it also allows him to pause. The guys also talked about why you need to constantly revisit your communication policy. Think about when is it okay to email, and at what point do you need to stop emailing and pick up the phone? For Micah's office, that's a 2-email limit. How is the phone answered? And what is the response when clients want to speak with an advisor? They wrapped up by sharing that if a client isn't understanding something that you're saying or isn't following your process, that's your opportunity to step up your game and take ownership for how you're communicating and setting expectations. All right, let's get into today's action items from Monday's episode. Pick 2 or 3 things that you can improve upon this week. That might be your communication plan or focusing on asking open-ended questions. Everyone has areas that they can improve upon, so find a couple of things to start working on to get better at. Put those items on a Post-it note or on your agenda to remind you of what those things are. Now, we're really excited to be partnering with Belay, so be sure to text RIA to 55123 to get a copy of their free guide on how to delegate in your life. Also, we had our second live virtual financial advisor training last month. The guys have done trainings on the retirement income timeline and the 1-page financial plan. Our next one is going to be focused on investment recommendations. Now, this is only for our members, so if you want to be included in this next training, reach out to us by messaging us on our website, theperfectria.com, or emailing us at lifestyle@theperfectria.com. And we have our Invictus Mastermind and Retirement Tax Services Tax Summit coming up at the end of September. So be sure to get signed up for those events. On Wednesday, Matt was joined by the CEO and founder of Altruist, Jason Wink. Matt kicked off the episode by commenting that Jason is essentially taking on the 8,000-pound gorilla. But Jason said it's actually easier to compete with that big gorilla than the one that's a bit more nimble. He said it's a big and ambitious goal, but that it's the perfect storm of opportunity. Matt was curious as to how he got to the point where he identified this opportunity and wanted to launch his own custodian. Jason's built 2 RIA firms, and he said there's a difference in dealing with custodians when you're small versus being large. He said there could be minor inconveniences when you're smaller, but when you're larger, it can be incredibly painful, and it can require an army of people. So creating his own custodian was born from the frustration from being an advisor. Jason said in terms of trusting the new guy that it's the same in terms of for clients. They're hiring the advisor first. However, in terms of safety, he said they have the same protection of all the big names have. Matt and Jason then talked about pricing and the cost associated with custodians. Jason said that the biggest cost people have when they choose a traditional custodian is that they don't even realize it, but they're actually costing their clients lost returns. And the advisor is going to absolutely be paying more and expensive because of buying software or the expense related to their time and doing more work. He said there's all these things that advisors should be doing, but that it's hard for them to do unless they're buying external software. He also brought up the user experience and that the large custodians have a non-elegant user experience, but that a consumer app doesn't have any of that nonsense that the advisor deals with. And advisors just accept that because that's just the way it's always been. Jason said if you're going to try to find the most productive way to invest all your capital, both for your time and your money, people need to audit how much work is going in. And also, what are they getting for it? Because he said all the custodian's costs get passed on to the advisor, and that's less return for the client. Matt wanted to know that if an advisor is looking to migrate from their existing custodian to Altruist, how this needs to be addressed. And Jason said this is a narrative that the industry created, that it's hard, and that you can open a single account in Altruist in 2 minutes. So if an advisor wants to move their whole book of business to Altruist, that it's really just a matter of a few clicks, that it's really quite simple. He said this stuff doesn't have to be hard. We've just made it hard, and that they've reinvented how it should be. Let's get into action items. Consider what industry mantras you've been repeating that aren't necessarily true. Think about what you're really paying to be at your current custodian. And that doesn't just mean the ticket charges, but everything else, and you need to add that up. Visit altruist.com to learn more about Jason's company and tune into Jason's podcast, The Advisor Journey. On Thursday, Jamie asked if you've ever struggled with how to convey a strategy or a plan or an idea to others, whether that's your clients, your team, or even your family. She said words matter, especially for financial advisors, because you need to explain complicated subjects in a way that doesn't alienate your audience. But how do you recognize when you're not getting through to your clients and aren't having that impact that you want to make? Jamie said it doesn't matter how smart someone is, but it does matter how much impact they have on a client. You need to figure out the most simple way to convey an idea. Think about if you can draw it in crayon. And that if you can break this down, imagine how much more confident clients will feel in making decisions. She said one of the first lessons in communication is bringing it down to the basics. How do you greet clients, and how are they approached in the lobby? What's the appropriate chit-chat, and what can or can't be said? How do you engage a client, and how are your meetings structured? At Schlansky & Associates, they're very strategic in how that conversation flows, but they want that meeting to be engaging. So after the initial chit-chat, they'll say, talk to me about your cash flow. And Jamie compared this to getting your vitals taken at a doctor's office. But by stating it that way, it opens up a conversation. Jamie shared some of her go-to things that you can say, such as, if I can, will you? The example she shared was with estate planning, which they tackle first in their office. And that with a client, Jamie compares this to building a house and that need for rock-solid foundation. By conveying estate planning through that metaphor, it helps clients understand the importance. So with the phrase, if I can, will you? She'll say, if I can get us a joint appointment with an attorney, will you commit to getting your estate planning done in the next 60 days? Now, by doing it this way, she's proposing a specific action where she's going to help with a burden and she's asking the client for a specific request. It helps your client see the partnership that you're creating. Now, just to note, Jamie said this can actually be used in every area of your life because it shows collaboration. Another go-to phrase is, "I'm not sure if this is right for you." Jamie loves this because it gives someone the opportunity to say no right away, but it also makes them want to figure out why something wouldn't be right for them. The example she used is a strategy for high-income earners or those with multiple income sources where everything is being deposited into a joint Schwab account, and then the client receives a check on the 1st and the 15th that will end up covering their monthly expenses. Another phrase for someone where Jamie keeps running into roadblocks with is she'll say, "Tell me more," or "Help me to understand." Now, she said the first has become a little trendy and she feels that just makes people want to reiterate what they've already said. So Jamie prefers to say, "Help me to understand." She said because it feels that it appeals to someone's empathy and it can open up that conversation. If Jamie can get that person to open up, she can start to see where they're coming from. The example she shared was about a prospect meeting, and they were talking about beneficiary designations. She believed they needed to discuss trust and felt that this was the most appropriate thing. That person was against bringing in legal counsel, so Jamie used the phrase, "Help me to understand this." From there, that person opened up and they shared their experience. That allowed Jamie to then present an option where that person felt that they had control. And that would be beneficial by using that phrase, "if I can help you." She said knowing how to open up these conversations can help you feel more confident with your clients, especially during those tough conversations. The last one Jamie shared is, "What will it take you to," and then fill in the blank. She does this especially for her team. Instead of just telling them what to do or how to do something, that it empowers them to figure things out and problem solve. And they aren't giving excuses as to why they can't do something, and Jamie doesn't have to argue for their limitations. She said this invites a collaborative experience and it can kick off a conversation. And that as a leader, this allows you to show your team that you respect them and that you want and value their opinion and their input. Let's get into action items. Read the book Exactly What to Say by Phil Jones. Think about what are the key phrases that you're using and look to see if they're still effective. And then in client meetings, have a blank sheet of paper and look to see how you can break down complex topics in crayon. Now, before I wrap up, I want to remind you about some of the great things we have happening. First, be sure to get your guide to delegation from Belay by texting the letters RIA to 55123. Second, if you've missed out on our first 2 member-only financial advisor training sessions, you do not want to miss out on our August training on investment planning and conversation. Send us a message through theperfectria.com to connect with our team. And lastly, don't miss out on our events this September. Be sure to get your tickets to the Retirement Tax Services Tax Summit. And Invictus members, be sure to sign up for our next Invictus Mastermind. Visit theperfectria.com and we can get you set up. That wraps up this week's recap. Thank you for joining me on today's Follow-Up Friday. Be sure to share this or any of our episodes with another advisor or a team member who you think might benefit from listening. And until next time, happy planning.